Now, we've worked with quite a few lawyers in the last few years, and we're working with Ana Teresa at the moment. She's fantastic. She's helped everybody over the end of 2023 to get their NHR, and it was a mad rush before the end, but we'll talk about that a little bit. But it's great to have it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Now, if you look at getting a visa for Portugal, it may seem like a simple process on the outside, and it can be, but it can also get really complicated. And when it gets complicated, you need somebody like Ana Teresa to help you out. So anyway, just have a listen to her. She's going to talk all about, or we're going to talk all about the different visas and who they apply to. So hope you enjoy it. AlgarveAddicts.com. Hi, Ana Teresa. Thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate you spending your time. I know your time is worth a lot. So it's great of you to spend this afternoon with us. So thanks so much for coming on board.
You're welcome. Thank you. My pleasure.
All right. So now you're based in Tavira right now.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure, born and bred, yeah. So you are a proper mesmo Algarvia, which is rare to find. Yeah?
And it's my favorite place, so I'm suspicious. Don't ask me too much about the other places in the Algarve. I'll say Tavira is the best, always.
So you're actually born in Tavira and grew up in Tavira?
Yes. Grew up here, lived here until I went to university, and then I returned after university. So I'm still here.
So what were those summers like when you were a kid, like cruising around the beaches and stuff? What is it like?
It's the best. It's the best. I went to the beach all the time with I was raised by my grandparents, obviously while my parents were working, which is a Portuguese thing. At least in my generation, we were raised by grandparents a lot. And summers at the beach all day. It was the best fun.
And have you seen a lot of change in Tavira over the years? I mean, because you went away and came back, right?
No, I think obviously I would say the biggest change I see is that I remember winters being very empty. The town was empty. We would say it would be like a ghost town. Now it's not as much. There's people in the streets, in the restaurants, in the bars, let's say, all year round. So I think that changed a lot over the last, I would say, 10 years. Since Portugal became a very popular place for people to relocate to retire to. So for sure, I've seen a change in that. It used to be, even I think all the Algarve, it used to be mainly a touristic place for summers and holidays, and now is a home for a lot of people, and there is people here all year round. Which is
a great thing, because I think the problem with seasonality has always been difficult for people who want to live here.
Exactly. And obviously in certain activities you still see seasonality, let's say for the beach, bars and things like that. But the actual town, I would say it has life all year round now.
Excellent. And now you moved away to Lisbon to study law. That must have been really exciting, the big city and all that. How was that?
I think it's a life experience to just, and I'm an only child, so just leaving my parents' wings and exploring a different place and a different life. Let's say, I think you grow a lot, not just with your education, but also as a person. So I think it made much sense, and it made me I think learn all the skills that I put in practice in my work activity, like sacrifice.
My 16-year-old daughter is about to do the same thing, so I kind of know what you mean, but from a different angle.
It's tough, and it was very tough for me in the beginning, but I think it made me learn to be, spirit of sacrifice, perseverance, and just get on with things.
And Lisbon, from a city's point of view, how was that?
Yeah, also that's one of the things I noticed nowadays. When I was living there, I lived in Lisbon between 2008 and 2013. I came back to the Algarve in the beginning of 2014. And it was right before Portugal gained all of those attention, and obviously due to the NHR program starting, due to the Golden Visa program starting. So all of that obviously attracted a lot of investment and a lot of foreigners to the country. And I think in a way put Portugal on the map. And I think the city was already full of life and tradition and culture. But I think now it gained, because obviously it has grown more, it has gained more of attention. I think the town is nicer now than it was before. But it's a beautiful city. In
No, I
my
agree with
opinion,
you because I mean I was there.
light. It's like a capital and it's a busy place, but you also have like the peace of the river and of beautiful sunsets, beautiful weather. I think it's very nice. It's
But
very
it's definitely
open.
changed a lot. I mean, I remember them going up in 2001, 2002, and I was quite amazed at all like the decayed buildings and the ruined buildings. And now it's just regenerated completely, and it's just it's sparkling,
Completely.
shining
It's true,
beautifully.
and it's a beautiful place.
Yeah. Okay, so should we get into the meat of the stuff? This is why we're here. We're talking about like how people can emigrate to Portugal. Can anyone emigrate here? Does Portugal accept anyone?
Yeah, anyone, as long as you're not a criminal or something like that.
That's a good point.
But
But
yeah,
also, and
once
also to
then,
a degree, you've got to have enough money as well, right?
yeah, you have to have money. But there are visas even for people that don't have a lot of money, but that want to start a life in a different place. Like, for example, the job seeking visa. You don't need to prove that you have a lot of money to apply for that visa. You need to have some money to maintain yourself in the first few months. And then if you find a job, you can live off of that job. So you don't necessarily need to be wealthy to relocate.
Excellent. I think that must be music to a lot of people's ears. But now there's the process of actually getting, I like to try and simplify things because this can get really complex. But if we look at it from the first stage, I mean, one, you need to apply and obtain a visa. Two, you granted residency or temporary residency, and there's different stages of residency, right? And then three, after 5 years, you can apply for citizenship. Is that correct?
That's correct. You can
Okay.
apply for citizenship or permanent residency.
Okay.
And for both, you need to do a Portuguese language test.
Okay,
Which
so if
is
we
not-
can dig into that process a little bit. So, applying and obtaining the visa, is it different for all the visas or is it fairly similar? Because I know with a D7, for example, you have to have accommodation and then before you actually go for and it's quite a difficult process.
So the general documentation for all types of visa is the same. So passport, fiscal numbers, have a bank account in Portugal, have accommodation, background check, criminal record background checks, travel insurance. All of those are a requirement for all types of visas, not just the D7. And then what differs between them is the specifics about the activity or what you will be doing in Portugal or how you will be living in Portugal. If you will be working, if you will be living off of your retirement, off of investments, off of your remote work. So that's what changes in each category or in each visa process. But the main documents are there for every type of visa, including the proof of accommodation, which can be a rental contract, or you can buy, or you can live at a friend's house temporarily before you find something more permanent. So that's pretty much it.
That sounds pretty flexible, but let's go into that in a little bit afterwards. I think if we could just break down all of the 8 visas, and actually there's 9 visas, the golden visa as well. If we could just break down those visas and just talk a little bit about each one. So if we can just start off with the D1 visa, and I know that these D numbers are not actually official numbers, they're just easy reference numbers, aren't they? So
Yeah, exactly.
the D1 visa for employed work. So who's that
Yeah.
for?
So I would say the D1 visa would probably be the trickiest one to get because one of the main characteristics of it is that you can only be employed, let's say, or your company can only sponsor you or employ you if no one else in Europe or Portugal can perform that activity. So the company needs to publish a publicity or a job offer on a national website for people that are seeking for a job, and that advert needs to be on for I think 30 days, and only if no one in Europe or Portugal qualifies for that, then the company is allowed to go ahead and proceed with the
Wow.
visa application
All
for
right.
the employer, for the employee. So it's
And
not
sorry,
so.
that website, is that Is that around Europe? It's
Yes, it's in Portugal. It's called Net Empregos.
okay. I've
Usually,
heard it.
and anyone can access it because it's in different languages. Let's say, for example, you are a French person and you want to look for a job in Portugal. You can access for that website and put your job offer.
Okay,
That's
good to know.
basically how it works.
So,
And in my work life experience, I have seen people with this type of visa, but for very specific professions. For example, I saw once a person that had this visa and he worked in mines. So he's which is not a very common thing in Portugal. So they looked for someone with experience from abroad, and this person had qualifications for this type of work, specific qualifications that they could not find anyone in Europe or in Portugal with, and he was granted the work visa.
okay. So it's quite a tough one to get. It's not, because I always imagined it would be easy because you'd have an employer, you find your job beforehand, and then you can just
Exactly.
do that. So it's not that easy.
It's
Okay.
not that, yeah.
So then
Then
the
you have
D2.
the D2. Yes, the D2 is also a common or nowadays a popular visa that people look after, which is also called the entrepreneur visa, which basically you need to set up a company in Portugal or be self-employed, bring a business plan, show to the Portuguese immigration authorities why your business is interesting, what it brings new to the country, and so on. And that's pretty much it. Have a business plan, set up a company, and start working.
Is that the same as the startup visa that I've heard about?
It's not exactly the same because you don't need to qualify as a startup, but it can be included in it. Yeah. It can be called startup visa as well.
Because it almost sounds like you're trying to pitch the government that you've got a really great job and you've a really great business and that you can work here. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And have you had quite a few of those people coming through, or is it a very rare visa that people try and get?
It's not rare. It's more and more common. It just takes a little bit more work because you really need to prepare your application very well. So that you show that your business is innovative enough and interesting enough for Portugal to take you, let's say.
Okay.
But it's not as hard.
Yeah. All right. And then the D3 visa, the highly qualified work visa?
It's for high qualified professionals that come to work for a company in Portugal that the company specifically want that person for some reason. But obviously they need to justify it very well. And it's a bit like the D1 in a way.
I was going to say, does that job have to be advertised on Net Emprego as well?
Yeah, as well.
Okay. But it sounds like, yeah, I suppose there's just a difference. I suppose if employed work might be just sort of less skilled labor.
Also because I didn't mention, but also on the D1, it also includes the seasonal workers as well, which that is something that can be a bit easier to obtain. But the thing is that those type of visas have a limit. And then after the seasonal work ends, let's say, then they need to return to their countries.
Would that be the people in like Odemira, for example, who are picking raspberries and things like that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Because I've heard there's amazing, like there's so many, a lot of Indian and Sri Lankan people in Alentejo. They've actually created a cricket pitch there and they've got their own cricket clubs, which is crazy. Yeah.
Exactly.
Anyway, okay. All right. So the next one, the D4. What's that all about?
It's normally what we call the student visas. So if you want to come to the university or do your high school in Portugal, if you want to study, do an internship for a Portuguese company or volunteer work for a Portuguese foundation, a Portuguese charity, this is the type of visa that you apply for.
Okay, and what about things like Erasmus and things like that? Does that come under a D4 visa if you do an Erasmus? You know Erasmus?
Yes, if you are non-EU, yes.
Okay, so you're going to have to get one of those. But if you're in EU, you don't need that, so you can easily go to. Okay,
Exactly.
all right. And then the D5, research, teaching, or cultural activities. Does that mean like a teacher coming over from a foreign, or is it like more highly qualified people like university professors?
It means it's a teacher, a scientist, someone that comes to work for a Portuguese university to give a course, things like that.
Okay, all right. So it's very different to anything else. And then family reunification on the D6 visa is something that I get a little bit confused with because I remember somebody suggesting that instead of when you apply for a D7 visa, which we're going to get to in a second, it's better to actually add your partners and your family members in there instead of getting it one for yourself as the primary person and then getting a D6 family reunification visa. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I think the confusion with that is because I would say 2-3 years ago, because the way things normally work is first the main applicant applies for residency, and then he does the family reunion for the family. And the family reunion can be done while the family is already in Portugal, or if the family is still in their country of nationality or residence, then they have to apply for D6 visa. So several years ago, the D6 visa, you would only apply for after the main applicant was already in Portugal with residency, and then he wanted to bring the family. So he would go to the immigration office in Portugal and would say, I'm now a resident. I want to bring my family. Here is their paperwork. Please pre-approve their entry in Portugal or their visa application. And then the immigration office here would issue like a certificate saying that the family entrance in Portugal through the family reunification visa was approved. And with that, they would go back to the embassy and apply for the D6. Nowadays, because it's so hard to get appointments with the immigration office, it's so difficult, the whole process. The majority of the embassies are doing D6s along with the D7, D8, D2 application. So now you do it at the same time.
Okay. So
at least this is what I've been seeing over the last 6 months. I've seen the majority of the Portuguese embassies allowing the D6 applications to be done at the same time as the main applicant.
Okay, but it's in a constant state of flux, I suppose, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, the D7 visa. Now, this is probably the most popular visa of all of them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think it's popular because it's also the most straightforward one, especially in terms of paperwork. For example, if you are retired, you just present proof of your retirement that you earn at least the Portuguese minimum salary per month, and that's it. I think it's straightforward. Or if you are just an investor, just wealthy, and you live off of passive income like investments, interest, dividends, you can also qualify for this type of visa the same way, just proof that you earn a monthly income coming off of passive investments. It can be rental income, anything like that. And or that you come to work for a religious organization or provide services to a religious organization. That's straightforward. You just need to prove that you earn the income, a pension statement, a pension payslip, a pension receipt, and that's it.
Okay. But the biggest snag with the D7 to me feels like the accommodation and trying to get a 12-month rental is really tough.
Because a lot of people are scared to commit to an accommodation before they are granted the visa. And I totally understand that. But unfortunately is one of the requirements.
Because you might miss out your first 3 or 4 months of rental. You won't even be here, but you're still paying for it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So what is the actual process?
You can also, but you can also just have a rental contract starting 3 or 4 months from the date you apply for the visa. You don't need to have the rental contract. You need to have the rental contract in place and signed, but it doesn't need to start on the day you apply for the visa. If you apply for the visa today, but you will only come in June or May, you can have your rental contract starting then only.
Okay, and could you just run through the process of the D7 visa, what people need to do first, like a basic timeline and more or less Obviously, timelines are difficult to tell, but
So
what do you think?
normally what I advise or how I do it with my clients is first we apply for the fiscal number, then we open a bank account in Portugal, then the clients look for accommodation in Portugal, and while they are doing this, they are organizing all the paperwork on their side in their country of nationality. So the criminal records, the travel insurance, and I help them also fill in the visa application form, prepare the personal statements, and just make sure that they have all the documentation required. They also book the appointment for the visa. And then prior to the visa application appointment, I go through everything. We prepare folders so that they bring everything with them ready to go. But I would say the first three things to do in Portugal or to start with will be the NIF, opening a Portuguese bank account and getting the accommodation. And on the side, also obtaining the documentation in their country of nationalities for the rest of the visa application. Proof of the income, of the pension, documents like that.
Have you had anyone ever been rejected for a D7 visa?
In my clientele, no.
That's a good sign.
Because yes, it's a good sign, and as I said, it's if you have the documentation, it's a straightforward application.
I think a lot of people are concerned, as like you said, they're looking for accommodation and say, what if we don't get the visa? Then we've got the accommodation, and they've gone through all that process.
I understand the concern, but I've never seen. If you have sufficient means of living, if you prove that you have passive income or a pension, there is no reason for them to reject your visa because you meet all of the necessary requirements.
Okay, great. All right.
There are more, for example, there is more uncertainty, for example, on a D2 than on a D7. And on a D2, probably I would understand why people are reluctant to commit to a lease or even to buy a property. On a D7 is more straightforward.
Okay, so on a D2, for example, it sounds like you're having a board of inquiry and they're judging whether your business is going to be a good fit for Portugal.
Everything will be subject to much more analysis, let's say.
Okay, and it obviously could take a longer time, right?
On a D7, you present proof of the numbers you earn, let's say, and how you earn them. And if that's clear and straightforward from the paperwork you show, there is no risks in my opinion.
Okay, and an important point with the D7 is you can still work on that in Portugal once you've got the temporary residency, right?
You can still work both the D7 and also the D8s and others. They allow you to provide services or to be an employee.
Okay. Great. So digital nomads, there's 2 D8 visas. Can you explain those, please?
Yeah, there is the D8 visa for a temporary stay of 1 year, but both can be extended. And there is the D8 visa for longer stays that you can just keep renewing every 2 years until you wish for longer stays. Let's say.
So what's the difference between the two? I mean, there's just the time period.
Because it's mainly the timelines. Because the D8 normal residency visa, it's valid for 2 years and you can keep renewing. The temporary one, it's valid for 1 year. You end it, you can leave and not be a resident anymore, or you can request an extension as well.
Okay, so then it'll roll over into a 2-year extension. Yeah. But both D8 visas, are they both 4 times the minimum wage, which is now 3,400 euros or something per month?
Exactly. But I think it's also that requirement is also because the majority of the activities are performed for foreign companies. So the salary does not come from Portugal, comes from abroad.
Okay.
And therefore the higher income that you need to prove, basically.
Okay, and just a word on those the income that you need to prove that's coming in. You have to both have it like 1 year's worth of that salary in your bank account, and you have to prove that it's coming in every month. Is that correct?
Normally, what you have to have in your bank account is proof, or what I suggest to my clients is that they have the Portuguese minimum salary times 12 in their bank account. And then they need to prove, besides that, they need to prove that they have a work contract or that they are self-employed. And every month from the services that they provide or from their work contract, they earn at least 4 times the minimum salary.
Okay.
Whether it's with a payslip from their company, or if they issue invoices to their clients, or if they have service providing contracts, like if it's a consultant or something like that, that has service providing contracts with 3 or 4 clients, and the total amount that they pay him or her is the 4 times the minimum salary. That's also sufficient.
Great. Okay, so that's all the visas except for the big one, the golden visa, which is not so big anymore because it's been essentially stopped, but it's
Yeah.
not stopped. So you can still get a golden visa.
Yes.
But you were telling me something earlier about the golden visa. You've had obviously a lot of experience with those. So what's your experience?
You can still get the golden visa. What ended were the property investments in order to obtain the golden visa. And yes, I've been working with the golden visa since it started in 2000. It was almost when I finished university and started working is when the golden visa started. And I worked with it since, because I started working in these immigration, property conveyancing and real estate laws since I started my bar training. And the golden visa used to be a very good option, and it was very attractive and worked really well for several years. But unfortunately, over the last, I would say 3 years, 4 years, a little bit before the pandemic, I think it started becoming a bit difficult. And then with COVID and everything, the backlogs, the immigration authorities not being able to handle everything, it became chaotic.
So why do you think it was difficult? Just because there were so many, and because it became badly run?
Obviously, there were a lot of people interested in this type of visa. It attracted a lot of foreign investment. With that, there were also stories, as you may know, in the news of corruption, of all of these dodgy schemes and investments and so on, that made the immigration authorities be more and more careful and thorough with the analysis of the applications, and not so easy to work with, I would say. So all of that, then, I would say, kind of puts a stop or a pause in for some time in the applications, and those small pauses then created a big delay. And then with the pandemic and everything, it's completely went out of control, in my opinion. And also, because in the beginning, for example, the D7 is, in my opinion, is a recent thing. I think it's something that became popular in the last 4 years, I would say, because before you wouldn't see a lot of people doing the D7. Majority of my clients would do the golden visa because it was a fast process. Now it's not anymore. And in my opinion, if you are a client of mine and you ask my opinion about this, if the intention of people is to relocate to Portugal, I don't suggest the golden visa ever. Because it's expensive, very expensive, and because it takes a long time. It's not fair. You pay so much money and you make such a big investment in different ways to wait so much for a residency card. So if your intention is to relocate and live in Portugal, you have from D1 to D8 to choose from. So choose one of those numbers instead of going through the golden visa process, because it's frustrating not only for me but for the clients. It's very frustrating.
That's exactly what I was about to say. It's like a headache for not just for you, but it's for the client as well. And as you say, it's expensive. It's a time-consuming process. Okay,
and frustrating. And frustrating.
But I suppose the only reason anybody would want to get a golden visa is if you don't want to live in Portugal, you just want to get an extra passport, and you can just get someone to manage the whole process for you.
Exactly.
And you've got tons of money.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Just now, the NHR, obviously that's not a visa, but the NHR, the non-habitual residency, has been stopped at the end of December last year. So a lot of people think it's going to be coming back. There is like another version of the NHR. Can you explain all that stuff, please?
Yes. So the NHR program Well, the NHR program has never been very consensual. It always had, since the beginning, it always had a bit of criticism, first from the EU, then from certain countries in the EU, because it attracted obviously a lot of wealthy people also to relocate to Portugal and pay their taxes here, or have a tax break for 10 years, because in the beginning, for example, for pensionists, the beginning of the NHR program, they were completely exempt from taxes on their pension for the first 10 years. Then,
Massive
yes,
bonus.
massive
Yeah.
bonus. So then this made a lot of people relocate and move to Portugal and retire in Portugal and benefit from this status, which was not so nice for certain European countries and even for the EU, who started receiving all of these complaints. So then Portugal was forced, in a way, to say, okay, let's put some 10% tax on pensions, which is still very good in comparison to other EU countries. So that's continued. That may have stopped some people in the beginning, but if they think in the longer plan, it's still very attractive. So that made also a lot of people continue to relocate under that status to Portugal. Not only pensionists, but other types of professionals. And now, out of the blue, a little bit, in my opinion, I was not expecting it. The government decided to end the program. And the reason for that is Portugal, it's very good, the foreign investment, it makes our economy move. It created a lot of jobs. It helped a lot of people through their businesses and so on, but created a big crisis in the real estate market, because foreigners can pay rents that Portuguese people can't, and also they can buy and pay for property prices escalated, because foreigners have much more money than Portuguese to buy properties. So obviously all of that created very difficult time for Portuguese people to buy property or to have a property to rent. And the government obviously suffered with the pressure from the people complaining and struggling a lot to have an habitation, a simple right, let's say, and that made the government take several decisions to try and let's say facilitate a bit more for the Portuguese people to buy and rent properties. And among others, it was the end of the NHR, which may make people not stop from coming to Portugal, but at least reduce maybe. But if you ask me, I think there will still be people interested in Portugal, even though these, because I also have clients who tell me, like, I don't care about the NHR.
Yeah, because it's a beautiful place to live. There's so many other
Anyway,
reasons.
I want to live in Portugal, and I love Portugal, and I don't mind paying my taxes in Portugal. So obviously, the NHR would be a little gift from the country. But if you still like the country, and if your intention is still relocate, I don't see why stopping just because of this. Yes, the government is stopped. Also, we will now, then a lot of things changed. And we will also have a new government in principle after the elections in March. We don't know which political party will win. So we don't know what will be the future of the NHR. But what has been approved for now in the budget of the government for the year of 2024 is that the NHR or some sort of NHR will continue for specialized professionals, foreigners that relocate to Portugal to work in high qualified professions, teaching professions, and so on. They can still benefit from the status. Or
And directors of startup companies as well, right?
Exactly. Or people that have started their relocation last year and can benefit from the transition period this year.
I think this is why you had a very, very busy Christmas period and New Year's period.
It was very busy. It was very busy because everyone wanted to obviously either take advantage of the status last year if they could, or prepare their relocation for this year so that they can still benefit for the visa this year.
Well, Anna Teresa, I hope you're going to manage to take some time off because I know you've had a very, very busy holiday season.
Yes.
So, and it's just wonderful to work with you. And both, we work, Nick Smith and myself, we work very closely with you, just for those guys out there who don't know. And if you do contact us for any kind of legal issues, we'll pass you on to Anna Teresa. So thank you so much for helping us out. It really is awesome working with you.
My pleasure to assist.
Yeah, and so basically, that's what you do on a daily basis, right? You help.
Yes, so
people.
I've been always working. This is my area of practice: immigration, relocating to Portugal, and property conveyancing, real estate. That's also what I do, real estate law. In terms of, normally I say to clients that I help them with everything related to their relocation process to Portugal. So I assist with everything from applying for the fiscal number, opening the bank account, purchase of a property, rental contracts, setting up a business, work contracts. I do a little bit of tax advice, assist with NHR applications, any type of visa applications, driving license exchange, all the small bureaucracies of living in Portugal. I assist clients to become settled or get settled in Portugal.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really do appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you. We'll see you this week. I'm going to do that meetup soon. Yeah, so it'll be cool.
Tomorrow.
Great. Thanks so much, Anna Teresa.
Thank you. Nice talking to you.
Algarve Addicts.com